Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we are joined, of course, by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. And as the establishment steps up their script for war with not just Syria, but Russia as well, I figured it would be good for us to kind of go into the benefits, the sui bono, the who benefits part of this situation, which we really need to go into, which no one else is really going into. And that's the fact that the monetary system needs war. The monetary system needs war to perpetuate the same old tactics that they have for so long. We saw that in World War I, World War II. We saw that with the Iraq War. We've seen this so many times before. And I find it really important to point out the false flag involved in this situation, which is that the Trump administration said just last week that they will no longer go after Assad. They are specifically looking at the terrorism side of things. And yet the media wants us to believe that just days after Assad is cut loose from this target, that he just wanted to go and gas all of his people. He wanted to gas a bunch of children, which is absurd. And most people with a good objective mind look at this and say this is insanity. But going into the monetary side of things, which is desperately needed, John, take it away. Why does a monetary system need war, especially in these times?
Well, they need a war because they have a deflationary state of the global economy, and what that means is that money is becoming more expensive, and as we have a debt-based system, debt is becoming very much more expensive by that deflationary pressure. Now, what they need is inflation. They need, more money to be printed, and of course, one of the greatest inflator in the world, and as seen in the Syrian currency supply, they have, of course, about a 30-40% inflation currently because of war, because the government prints money to create and buy things in order to fight a war against ISIS in Syria. So
ISIS, the group that the West armed and funded.
Yeah, well, you could call them wherever they are.
Yeah. Rebels, ISIS,
Yeah, it's the same, terrorists that, they've been funding for decades with
Absolutely.
Al-Qaeda and everybody.
Taliban, yeah.
But yeah, so what they need is they need a war in order to inflate the global economy, in the United States and the Western world. They need that war in order to, survive the massive debt bubble that we've blown.
Yeah.
Because we're facing now, a huge demographic cliff where also, we don't have that much consumption anymore. We're going downhill with that. So what is happening is they need, all this, the whole monetary system to massively inflate, but there's no inflation. So you could either print that money or, of course, as I've gone through before with going through the history of inflation, there's always a war usually that happens that creates this hyperinflation in order to get out of the debt problem that they created for themselves.
Well, absolutely. Well, I just wanted to kind of go into the fact that, for example, after the Great Depression, so many people claim that FDR pulled everyone out of the Great Depression through the New Deal, this socialist program that basically put the tentacles into every area of the markets and manipulated the markets vastly. Meanwhile, it seems to me that it was the war.
You call it World War II?
Yeah,
the New Deal?
Yeah, absolutely. That's basically what I'm getting at, is because so many people falsely misunderstand how these things happen, and they think, well, FDR pulled the U.S. out of a depression through the New Deal. No, he pulled the U.S. out of a depression using the war, using these big arms manufacturers, using the amount of money
that tires everybody, because you send everybody to kill each other.
Absolutely, and then the GDP is mostly government at that point, and
of course
it manipulates and manipulates. So how do you bring life back to a dead horse? Well, that horse is already manipulated into life. Let's manipulate it more and just prop it up a bit more. Just shove steroids in it, and eventually those steroids will affect that horse to the extent where its heart fails and it dies. And I feel like this is the exact same situation that we're seeing now, except for at a much greater scale with the monetary system and war, as the U.S. desperately, the establishment, the deep state, desperately tries to get into war with Russia and Syria Syria. Syria is just, the underlying aspect of it.
Yeah.
We'll go to war with Syria. Horrible. They see children die, so their solution is to kill 100 times more children and then end up hitting Russian targets, which will bring them into World War III. And how great is that for the establishment? How terrible is that for us?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the reason, in my belief, and this is my opinion, the reason why I believe they're going into Syria in the first place, the United States and their allies, and of course there's the hidden agenda of Saudi Arabia, which is have the United States, you just stick a little sword into their side and say, I'll kill you if you don't do what I want. I believe they want to take over Syria so they could build their pipeline and then compete with the energy delivery as the Russians are. The Russians took over Crimea because they wanted to protect their pipelines of gas going in, selling to Europe.
Russian annexed territory, let's make that clear. They didn't really go
annexed.
into Ukraine and steal land. It was already Russian territorial. Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, so what happened is that of course Saudi Arabia is struggling because of massive commodity drop in prices. So they want to take over Syria so they could build their pipeline into Europe and then sell and compete with Russia on oil. And of course, Syria is an ally with Russia, and of course Russia is going to stop. They don't want any competition on the other side in Europe. So there's a huge pull there forth and back between all these global powers: the U.S., Saudi on the one side, Syria, Russia, and others on the other side. It doesn't really matter. All they want to do is it's all geopolitical and about commodities usually when we have these scenarios.
Well, they stole the gold out of Libya. They stole the gold out of Iraq, and they implement their central banking systems. And you look at these places before and after, and before it's a much nicer place. But we're saving these countries by pillaging them, destroying them, killing just untold amounts of people, and then stealing their assets and commodities.
Well, that's all what it is about. You just tear the country apart into a massive civil war, and then you go and loot them after. First, of course, you implement the failed state with the monetary system. Then the failed state fails to pay their debts, as in Iraq and Libya and other places, and then you just go and buy up for nothing. And of course, all the Western corporations can come in and rebuild the country again. I have inside information on this from a former friend of mine from Libya. He now lives in Libya, but he was fearing for his life because ISIS got in there. That's the last I've heard from him, unfortunately. But what he told me was that, of course, all these massive corporations were there right after they bombed the crap out of Tripoli and all these other cities that was quite modern.
After implementing their no-fly
they
zone.
started to build the telecom sector. They started to build infrastructure and so on again. And he said, it was all these Western companies coming in, and together with the military-industrial complex, they just destroy and then they rebuild.
Well, we know what precedes the monetary desperation and the war, and I know with war what comes after war is, well, most of us are dead, but what comes after for the monetary system after that big war? How is a monetary system going to stay on its feet anyway? I mean, in the long run.
Well, first of all, I hope that the first nuclear blast we will have is in the monetary system. I hope that for anything in the world that happens first.
He's saying a metaphor, just so you know.
Metaphorically, because it is a fission reactor, this whole monetary system. It's so complex and everything's just flying around, all these trades, exchanges, all these algorithms, trading, algobots, and then suddenly crashes, and then the whole thing just starts collapsing, like a nuclear bomb going off. And of course, Warren Buffett called, the derivative sectors weapons of mass destruction. So all that it comes down to, we need to really warn people about this monetary collapse coming, because it's inevitable. It has to come. There's no chance that we're not gonna, people believe that Trump is gonna fix the economy and everything. The problem is he doesn't have the Trump card. He was dealt a bad hand, and that's how it is. He was just dealt a bad hand. The economy is not that great. The problem is it's not because that they can't build the economy and so on. It's because of the pressure, like the deflationary state of the Western countries.
Yeah,
our population are decreasing.
Well, I will just say that while Trump can't do anything about the monetary system per se, I mean, he has no hand in that. He can't do anything. It's been set. It's been written. The script has been written long ago. However, I'm getting a lot more hard on Trump for other reasons, including the fact that he is entrenched in the deep state he's so-called fighting while pushing this agenda forward of war. Well, one day he's saying, I'm not going after Assad, and then another false flag attack happens and he goes, oh, well, I think we got to put the military intervention idea on the table. And then Rex Tillerson's like, well, Russia, we're looking at Russia and we hope that they listen to us and they do as we say and they get out and they don't align themselves with Syria. All these veiled threats, and this is what brings us into death and destruction. And I don't want to fearmonger, but this is a truth, and people need to know the truth in order to call it by its true name and take down the truth and stop stop what we're seeing currently happening from happening.
Well, it's the deep state military-industrial complex that are running this foreign agenda, and that's what they want. They want a perpetual war because that's how they can fund themselves and make money. That's the only way they make money is by war. The military-industrial complex. I talked about it in my book, The End of Freedom, how our monetary system enslaves us. Mm-hmm. It's just inevitable. Like, they're going to just want to go to war no matter what, and they'll find whatever threat. Of course, it's North Korea now, and who knows where. Like, they really want this war because they're so desperate, to perpetuate and keep their jobs and make sure that, this, and of course the bankers on the other side wants to, make sure that the monetary system doesn't really collapse. Well, it has collapsed really, but they want to keep on having it going by this war.
It makes me absolutely sick. It's disgusting. I'm so sick of dealing with this. I've been dealing with it as long as I've been able to understand even the most minute parts of politics and political science, and it just continues to perpetuate. It makes me. It really hurts deep inside knowing that we are just continuing to go down this path. And every time it looks like we're going to be given a bit of leeway, it happens again. It happens worse, and it disgusts me. But closing it off, thank you very much, John, and we'll be back at you with much more. Check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated. Of course, check our address for Bitcoin in the description in the comments, and we'll put it on the screen for you to scan if you so please. And don't forget to check our link for the Red Pill Expo, where you can meet people like Robert Kiyosaki, G. Edward Griffin, all these incredible people. Watch James Corbett talk. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be in Bozeman, Montana in June. You can buy tickets at the link below. But until next time, stay tuned. We got a lot more coming at you. This is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.